Welcome back to the Daily Edition. Well, as more details emerge about the tragedy involving MH17, it's difficult to turn on a television at the moment and not see the shocking pictures of the crash site. But in situations like this, should parents be limiting their children's exposure to the media, or is it healthy for them to see and deal with grief? For more on this, we're joined by psychologist Shane Warren. Good to see you, Shane.
Yes.
This is a really difficult one, and it's certainly one that I know that lots of parents have faced over the weekend. What do we do? Do we limit their exposure? Do we talk to them before they see it? Often they catch something before we have a chance to talk to them about it.
Look, it's a little bit of both. I mean, depending on the age of your child, we don't want to overexpose a very young child to this kind of imagery, but we must talk about it. We must actually let them know what's going on and give them some guidance about how they can deal with it, because what we are teaching also in this process is actually empathy, to actually be able to connect to the misery and sadness that other people are suffering, and then they actually can understand that kind of perspective. Yeah.
Details-wise, do you omit details? Do you lie? Or do you just tell it like it is?
You know, honesty is the best policy, but controlled honesty. So really what, again, we're saying, it depends a little bit on the age of your child. For example, I have very young children, they're only 4.5 and 6, so the controlling information is important there, not exposing too much to the news and television. My older brother, for example, has teenage children, so they're seeing it in a different perspective, and they're getting more, I suppose, desire for more knowledge. We must talk about it, we must be honest about it.
Teenage children are obviously, they're going to be able to get a lot of information themselves. If we're looking at younger children, give us an example of how you have turned this with your own children, for example.
Yeah, look, I mean, we were in a situation where they saw it firsthand on the news in the morning, so we couldn't hide it from them anyway. And we also are a family who travel an awful lot, so they're very exposed to aeroplanes. In that context, we decided to sit down quite strongly and just talk about them, saying, look, something bad has happened, some very nasty things happened, and this happens in the world, guys. We need to be aware of that. We're lucky, we're a safe family, we're at home, so turning around to actually appreciate and respecting the value of our safe space in Sydney, so they can appreciate that again, and advise them that, look, you know, we're not going to control the situation in the life for you. You're going to see these things, you'll hear bad stuff. You need to ask Daddy if you have any questions, you need to talk about it with us. What I want to do is encourage my children to dialogue, because then I can direct the information in the way that I think is safe for them.
Shane, how do you express those feelings connected to grief for kids? So particularly if you have a little one who's very upset about what they've seen on TV this weekend.
That's right. Look, you know, children often express their grief quite strongly through either extreme anger or extreme sadness. So unnecessarily crying, even just things like, you know, the kind of, my brother punched me, that kind of stuff, which is not usual for that child. That's because they're actually feeling something they can't control. Allow them to express the emotions, very important there, and then actually comfort them at this time.
Can I just get you to be really specific for us?
Okay.
Do you actually say a plane has come down and everyone on board has, you know, sadly gone to heaven, or whatever belief system you might have in your house? Do you tell them how it's happened, that it's at the hands of somebody else? I mean, to what degree is it helpful to give detail?
Yeah, look, this is really one of those things we need to be quite specific for each individual case. In my household experience, we saw it, we heard the information about a plane being blown up. They were there. There was no way we could stop that information getting them, so we had to be quite honest and upfront about it. I don't know many other families who wouldn't have actually been exposed to that now, so yes, we do actually talk further about that. We talk about the fact that there is conflict in the world, and there's people who don't agree with people, and some people take that to extremes, and that's not a good thing. You know, we actually really disencourage that kind of perspective, that it's okay to, you know, be mean and nasty to people. So we're using it as an option to demonstrate to our children that you will disagree with people, but that's not a reason to punch them, to blow them up, to do these kind of things. So that kind of specification.
And when he's too young to tell the kids, I tried to explain to my son, who's just turned 4, and although he's shown some interest in what I was saying to him, he didn't quite grasp it, and his attention could quite easily lead him away.
Yeah.
Have I done my job now by saying that to him, or do I really need to push this a little bit more?
No, I think you've addressed it in that kind of situation. Very young children will give us the signs that they might need to do it. I've used the example of, particularly if they're kind of expressing sadness or grief in some way that's unusual for them, that might suggest it's playing in the back of their head. You might want to open the dialogue a little bit more. But very young children, I'm saying, yeah, keep the television off, keep them away from it. Older kids, it's better to actually encourage the conversation. Don't let them build it up in their heads. So if we ignore the conversation, we make it a message of this has to be brushed locked away under the carpet. We can't talk about this, and that's not a good thing in future life.
Generally, they'll tell you when they're ready to move on. They stop asking questions about your top tips. What would they be to deal with
Look,
grief?
one of the things around that kind of stuff is that, we need to be honest, keep it casual. You should encourage some conversation. That's what we really are saying. Brushing it on the carpet is too scary, okay? It makes it bigger. Don't give too much information, but then again, don't give too little. You've got to find that balance for your family and the exposure that kids have. And it's good often to link it to their own experiences. So linking it in our context as well around situations when people pass over, how sad that is. There's other families in Australia and around the world who are feeling quite sad right now.
And I would also, say keep your language simple.
Very much.
Keep it so they can understand it. Don't make it complex.
But the kids' experience is important with all kids. Keep it simple.
Shane, if you've got your own grief though, are you supposed to hide that from the kids?
No.
Is it okay for them to see you cry, to see that you're upset?
Spot on. It's actually okay with that because one of our children will learn from observation. So they see their parents struggling with something and being upset by something, but then still moving on. They're learning that will happen to them, and that's okay.
Yeah, and that they're okay at the end of it.
That's it.
Yeah.
Shane, terrific to talk to you. Such a difficult issue and one that I know that we've all faced here at the desk over the weekend and certainly people at home. Thank you.
Thank you.
Still to come on the Daily.